A mysterious tracking device embedded in an injured horse's shoulder would transform a struggling single mother's life and uncover an international smuggling operation that had eluded authorities for decades, all triggered by one woman's courageous decision to rescue a severely wounded stallion from certain death on a stormy night. A choice that would lead to what federal investigators now call one of the most significant criminal enterprise discoveries in equestrian history. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The autumn rain hammered against the windshield of Layla Morgan's weathered Jeep as it struggled up the muddy road to Willow Creek Ranch. The wipers, long overdue for replacement, smeared more mud than they cleared, forcing her to lean forward, squinting through the hazy view. Her hands, cracked from years of manual labor, gripped the steering wheel with the same determined tension that had carried her through 3 years of mounting hardships since her husband's sudden death. The final notice from the bank felt heavier than the boxes of donated school supplies for her veterinary clinic stacked in the back of the Jeep. Supplies she'd driven 80 miles to collect because the local charity organization no longer had her small operation on their distribution list. 60 days after her husband Mark's fatal heart attack, a devastating barn fire that destroyed half their equipment, and the unprecedented drought that had decimated their modest boarding operation, Layla had just 60 days before Willow Creek Ranch, the home she'd built with Mark over 15 years, would be seized to cover $37,000 in back taxes and mortgage payments. The Jeep's engine coughed ominously as it crested the final hill, revealing the 40-acre property spread below. The once vibrant pastures now lay dormant, the small riding arena partially dismantled after selling the lumber to cover last month's utilities. The blue farmhouse, with its wraparound porch where she and Mark had spent countless evenings watching the sunset, now showed peeling paint and a partially collapsed gutter, another repair she couldn't afford. Even the majestic willow tree that had given the ranch its name, planted by Mark's grandfather when he first purchased the land in 1952, seemed to droop more heavily than usual under the punishing rainfall. Layla parked beside the smaller of the two barns, the one that had survived the fire. Its faded red paint was chipping away, exposing weathered wood beneath. Yet another maintenance task pushed to a list of impossibilities. The sound of the sputtering engine finally dying was punctuated by a flash of lightning that illuminated the entire property in harsh white light, followed by a rumble of thunder that perfectly matched Layla's mood. 12-year-old Sophie burst from the farmhouse, her yellow raincoat hastily thrown over her shoulders, her dark curly hair already plastered to her face from just seconds in the downpour. Even at her young age, Sophie carried herself with a maturity born of necessity. Since Mark's death, she'd stepped into roles no child should have to assume: part-time stable hand, unofficial veterinary assistant, and emotional anchor for her mother. Layla watched her daughter's expression brighten momentarily before recognizing the defeated slump of her mother's shoulders. "The bank still won't extend the loan?" Sophie asked, already knowing the answer as she helped unload the donated supplies, her slender frame straining under weights that would have challenged many adults. Layla didn't sugarcoat the reality. They'd long since passed the point where protective lies served any purpose. 60 days before foreclosure, she confirmed, her voice steady despite the devastation the words represented. "Unless we can come up with enough to cover the back payments and taxes." "How much?" Sophie asked directly, the practical question of a young person who had learned early that problems required specific numbers before they could yield solutions. $37,000, Layla replied, shifting another box to her hip. "Plus whatever. We need to actually keep operating once we clear the debt." The enormity of the figure hung between them, made more impossible by the fact that their combined bank accounts currently held less than $650. Sophie's young face momentarily betrayed the weight of their situation before she squared her shoulders with the stubborn resilience that reminded Layla so much of Mark. "Something will work out, Mom," Sophie said firmly. "Maybe that rural business grant you applied for will come through. Or we could try setting up an online fundraiser. Lots of people do that these days." Layla nodded, not wanting to extinguish her daughter's hope with the harsh realities she'd already confirmed through countless phone calls and emails. The grant funds had been depleted months ago, distributed to larger operations with more established histories. The crowdfunding platform had seemed promising initially, but after 3 weeks they'd raised barely $800, most from former riding students who had long since moved on to larger stables. Even the local veterinary practice where she'd once worked, full-time before establishing her small mobile clinic, had rejected her application to return, citing budget constraints and her potential short-term availability given her ranch's financial troubles. "We'll figure something out," Layla agreed, pushing the last box into the storage area. "But first, I need to check that fencing on the east pasture before the storm gets worse. If another section comes down, we'll have nowhere safe to exercise. Mrs. Henley's gelding, and we can't afford to lose our last boarding client." This was the Morgan way, facing insurmountable problems by focusing on immediate tasks, one day at a time, one project at a time. The emotional reckoning could wait until after the day's work was done. "Dr. Watkins called while you were gone," Sophie said as they made their way toward the house, shoulders hunched against the driving rain. "He said Daisy's blood work came back normal, so the Johnsons can stop the antibiotics." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The small victory brought a momentary smile to Layla's weather-beaten face. Her modest mobile veterinary practice focusing on smaller farms and rescue animals had been their primary income since Mark's death. But even that had dwindled as clients sought more comprehensive services from larger practices with better equipment. Inside the farmhouse, warmth from the wood stove, their primary heat source since cutting back on propane costs, offered temporary relief from the chill. The interior of the century-old home told the story of their decline in subtle ways. Empty, spaces on walls where artwork had been sold, worn furniture carefully maintained rather than replaced, the careful patching of curtains and upholstery. What remained spoke to priorities. Family photographs still held places of honor, Sophie's academic awards and riding ribbons lined the hallway, and Mark's collection of hand-carved wooden horses maintained their prominent position on the mantel. Layla had just started sorting through the day's mail, mostly bills and final notices, when her phone rang. The sound was so unexpected that both she and Sophie stared at the device momentarily. Few people called these days. Good news had become scarce enough that the phone rarely brought anything but additional complications. "It's Dr. Nakamura," she said with surprise, referring to the county's animal control veterinarian. Hiro Nakamura had been a classmate of Layla's in veterinary school before choosing public service over private practice. He had remained a supportive colleague even as Layla's financial situation had forced her to scale back her practice to barely sustainable levels. Layla answered, automatically adopting the professional tone she used for business matters. "Hiro, what can I do for you?" Dr. Nakamura's voice carried the urgency of a professional crisis. "Layla, I've got an emergency situation. Highway Patrol just brought in an injured stallion found wandering along Route 16 near the old quarry. He's badly hurt, probable vehicle collision, but showing remarkable resilience. He needs immediate care and housing beyond what the county shelter can provide, and we're already overcrowded with the animals from that hoarding case last week." Layla's stomach sank. Another mouth to feed was the last thing they needed. "Hiro, you know our situation. We can barely keep our remaining animals fed right now. I know, Layla, and I wouldn't ask if I had other options. The genuine regret in his voice was evident. But this horse, there's something unusual about him. Despite severe injuries, his conformation suggests exceptional breeding. If we can save him, he might actually be valuable enough to help with your situation. Layla sighed, rubbing her temple where a stress headache was forming. Every hard luck case seems unusual to you, hero. This is different, he insisted, an uncharacteristic excitement breaking through his professional demeanor. I've worked with thousands of horses, Layla. This one, his bone structure, muscle development, even the shape of his head, suggests serious racing stock, possibly European. Despite being half-starved and injured, his physiological markers are extraordinary. At minimum, I can guarantee all medical costs covered through the county's emergency fund. All I need is your boarding space and basic care. Layla hesitated, torn between practical financial concerns and her lifelong dedication to animal welfare. A dedication that had sometimes frustrated Mark, who'd occasionally suggested her compassion might be their financial undoing. How badly? Is he hurt? Substantial lacerations along his right side, possible shoulder injury, severe dehydration and malnutrition. But his will to survive is extraordinary. I've rarely seen such determination in an injured animal. There was something in Hero's voice beyond professional assessment, a sense that this particular horse mattered in ways he couldn't fully articulate. Looking up, Layla caught Sophie's expression. That mixture of hope and determination that had kept them going through each previous crisis. Her eyes practically pleaded with her mother, the animal lover in her unable to contemplate refusing refuge to a creature in need, regardless of their own circumstances. "Mom," she whispered, hand covering the phone's microphone, "we still have that empty stall in the back barn, the one we were saving for." She didn't need to finish. They both knew the stall had been kept vacant in the irrational hope they might someday earn enough to buy back Thunderclap, Mark's beloved Appaloosa. Sold 8 months after his death when the feed bills became unmanageable. A hope that grew more impossible with each passing month. Layla knew before speaking what her answer would be. Some values couldn't be compromised even when facing financial ruin. The Morgans had always been known for 3 things in Mapleton County: their stubbornness, their work ethic, and their willingness to help a creature in need, human or animal. "Bring him over," she said finally. "We'll make space in the back barn. But Hero, I'm serious. We can't afford any additional expenses right now, not even extra feed." "Understood," he replied, relief evident in his voice. "I'll bring a month's supply of specialized feed and all necessary medications. The county's emergency fund will cover ongoing treatment. I'll be there within the hour." As she ended the call, Sophie was already moving toward the door, purpose replacing the dejection that had shadowed her moments earlier. "I'll prepare the stall and get the emergency medical kit ready." Layla nodded, watching her daughter hurry. Across the muddy yard, her movements energized by the prospect of helping a creature in greater distress than themselves. This was another Morgan trait, finding strength in providing help rather than receiving it. She decided the fence repair could wait an hour while they prepared for the injured horse's arrival. The back barn, smaller and older than the main structure that had partially burned, had been Mark's grandfather's original stable. Its construction was superior, with hand-hewn oak beams that had weathered decades of storms without complaint. It housed only 2 animals now, a gentle quarter horse named Patience that served as Sophie's riding mount and lesson horse for the few students they still had, and an elderly donkey called Oliver that had been Mark's first rescue animal 20 years earlier. The vacant stall at the far end had been meticulously maintained despite its emptiness, fresh straw regularly replaced, water trough kept clean, walls periodically scrubbed. Layla had sometimes wondered if this small act of preservation represented their collective refusal to fully accept how much they had lost. a symbolic space kept ready for the return of better days. Sophie was already spreading fresh bedding. When Layla entered, her movements efficient despite the excitement evident in her expression. "Do you think he's really valuable, like Dr. Nakamura said, or just another rescue case?" "Hiro doesn't usually exaggerate about animals," Layla acknowledged, checking the stall's gate hinges for stability. "But valuable is relative. A prize... Bull is valuable to one farmer and worthless to another who raises sheep. Let's not get ahead of ourselves." Still, Sophie persisted, arranging medical supplies on a small shelf with practiced efficiency. "If he really is from racing stock, that could mean something, right? Maybe there's a reward for his return, or breeding rights could be worth money." Layla recognized the dangerous spark of hope in her daughter's eyes, the same spark that had appeared with each potential solution to their financial crisis, only to be extinguished by subsequent disappointment. She wanted to caution her against this familiar pattern, but couldn't bring herself to dampen her enthusiasm. Sometimes hope, however temporarily misplaced, was the only thing that kept them moving forward. "Let's focus on getting him healthy first," she advised instead. "Whatever comes after that is secondary." The sound of tires on gravel announced Hiro's arrival. Through the barn door, they watched his county truck carefully navigating the muddy drive, followed by an animal control trailer emblazoned with the county's logo. The continued downpour had transformed the farmyard into a treacherous mix of puddles and mud, adding another complication to an already challenging transfer. Hiro emerged first, dressed in practical veterinary coveralls, his black hair tucked beneath a waterproof cap, medical case in hand. Despite the circumstances, Layla felt the familiar small uplift seeing her old friend, one of the few connections to happier times that remained in her life. At 43, Hiro carried himself with the confidence of someone who had found his true calling, his movements purposeful and direct. "Thank you for doing this," he said, without preamble as he reached them. "I know your situation. This wasn't a request I made lightly." Before Layla could respond, a commotion from the trailer drew their attention. The animal control officer, a young woman Layla didn't recognize, was struggling with the trailer's ramp, cursing as it stuck halfway. "Easy with him, Maya," Hiro called sharply. "He's already spooked enough." From inside the trailer came sounds that raised Layla's professional concern. The frantic shuffling of hooves, a pained whiny, the thud of a body against metal walls. These were the sounds of an animal in extreme distress, possibly dangerous in its panic and confusion. "Sophie, stay back," she instructed automatically, moving forward to assist. Years of handling frightened livestock had taught her the dangers of a terrified horse in a confined space. "What's his temperament?" she asked Hiro as they approached the trailer. "Remarkable considering his condition," Hiro replied. "More frightened than aggressive. Seems to respond well to gentle handling, but the trailer transport has clearly escalated his stress." When they finally managed to lower the ramp completely, Layla's first glimpse of the stallion stopped her in her tracks. Despite Hiro's description, she wasn't prepared for the animal's condition. The once black coat was matted with mud, blood, and what appeared to be oil residue. Open wounds scored his right flank, revealing raw flesh beneath. His right front leg was carefully wrapped in protective bandaging, suggesting a possible fracture or severe sprain. What struck her most, however, were his eyes. Large, dark, and eerily intelligent, watching their movements with an awareness that seemed to transcend animal instinct. "My God," she breathed, professional assessment momentarily giving way to basic empathy. "What happened to him?" "Based on his injuries, looks like he was hit by a vehicle, possibly thrown into the drainage ditch alongside Route 16, Hiro explained clinically, though his expression revealed his emotional response matched her own. Exposure, dehydration, and malnutrition suggest he's been wandering for days, maybe weeks. No identification, no microchip detected on initial scan. A mystery wrapped in a tragedy. Despite his injuries, the stallion carried himself with a dignity that caught Layla's professional attention. Hero's assessment of exceptional breeding appeared justified. Even in his diminished state, the horse displayed the distinctive confirmation of quality bloodlines. The elegant head, the proportional balance of his frame, the muscle structure still evident beneath his malnourished condition, all pointed to careful breeding rather than random genetics. "He's beautiful," Sophie whispered from behind them, having disregarded her mother's instruction to stay back. At the sound of the girl's voice, the stallion's ears pricked forward, his attention shifting from the adults to focus intently on Sophie. Something in his posture changed. A subtle relaxation of heightened vigilance, a slight lowering of his proud head. Hero noticed the response immediately. "Interesting. That's the first positive reaction he's shown to anyone besides me. Your daughter might be our secret weapon in rehabilitation, Layla." Getting the injured animal from the trailer to the stall presented a significant challenge. His reluctance to put weight on the injured leg made each step a painful deliberation. Layla and the animal control officer positioned themselves on either side, providing support without forcing movement, while Hero monitored the stallion's medical stability during the transfer. What surprised them all was Sophie's natural instinct for calming the frightened animal. Walking slightly ahead, she maintained a gentle stream of encouragement, her voice pitched in the soothing tones that seemed to transcend species barriers. The stallion followed her with surprising willingness, eyes never leaving the girl's slender form. "She's a natural horse whisperer," Hero observed quietly to Layla as they watched Sophie guide the stallion into the prepared stall. Just like Mark was. The comparison to her late husband brought both pain and pride. Mark had indeed possessed a remarkable affinity for animals, especially horses. It was how they had initially connected during veterinary school, both drawn to equine medicine and rehabilitation. Seeing that same gift in their daughter created a bittersweet connection across the years. Once the stallion was settled in the stall, Hero conducted a more thorough examination, confirming his initial diagnosis and administering necessary medications. The shoulder isn't fractured, thankfully, just a severe sprain and deep tissue bruising. The lacerations are concerning, but show no sign of infection yet. His blood work shows severe anemia and electrolyte imbalances consistent with starvation and dehydration. As Hero worked, Layla contemplated the financial implications of their good deed. While the veterinarian had promised to cover medical expenses, the reality of another animal on their struggling ranch remained problematic. Feed costs alone would strain their meager resources, not to mention the time and energy required for proper rehabilitation. Yet, watching Sophie's gentle interaction with the injured stallion, she couldn't bring herself to regret their decision. For the first time in months, her daughter's expression carried something beyond grim determination, a spark of genuine connection and purpose that had been notably absent as their financial situation deteriorated. The animal control officer departed once transfer paperwork was completed, leaving Hero to finish treatment protocols and provide Layla with detailed care instructions. As he packed specialized feed, medications, and treatment supplies into the barn's storage area, he elaborated on his unusual certainty about the stallion's potential value. "I've consulted with the Thornfield Racing Facility," he explained, referring to a prestigious track 2 counties over. "This horse has all the physiological markers of top-tier racing stock: the muscle fiber density, cardiovascular efficiency, the leg-to-body ratio, all classic indicators of speed breeding. The lab tests show unusually high red blood cell count and mitochondrial density, even in his compromised state." He hesitated before continuing. There's something else about him I can't quite define. Something in his conformation that looks foreign, not typical American thoroughbred lines. If I had to guess, I'd say there's European breeding, possibly Irish or Spanish influences. Layla appreciated her friend's attempt to frame their charity as potential investment, but remained realistic. And if no owner comes forward to claim him, if he's just another abandoned animal when times got tough? Hero's expression turned thoughtful. Then you've potentially got a valuable breeding prospect, or even a competition candidate after rehabilitation. Either way, Layla, this could be an opportunity rather than just another obligation. As the veterinarian prepared to leave, promising to return the following day, he paused at the barn door, lowering his voice. There's something else, something I didn't want to mention in front of Sophie. Layla raised an eyebrow, immediately concerned. When I was examining him at the clinic, I noticed some unusual scarring patterns on his hindquarters. Very faint, but distinctive, the kind we sometimes see in horses that have been used for transportation. Transportation, Layla questioned, not immediately understanding. Drug mules, Hero clarified quietly. Certain cartels use horses to move product across borders, surgically implant packages, then extract them later. The scarring pattern is subtle, but consistent with what Border Patrol veterinarians have documented. The implications sent a chill through Layla that had nothing to do with the rain. You think he was used to smuggle drugs? It's just a theory, Hero cautioned. But I've sent photographs to a colleague at the Border Patrol Veterinary Unit. If they confirm my suspicions, we might need to notify federal authorities. It could explain why such a valuable animal was wandering injured. Perhaps he escaped during a transfer or was abandoned after serving his purpose. This additional complication cast their rescue in an entirely new light. Beyond the challenge of rehabilitating an injured animal, they might be harboring evidence in federal crimes. What should we do? Layla asked, practical concerns immediately surfacing. For now, nothing changes, Hero advised. Treat his injuries, help him recover. My colleague will get back to me within a few days. If there's reason for federal involvement, I'll handle those communications. No need to alarm Sophie with speculations. After Hero's departure, Layla found Sophie still in the stall, gently cleaning the stallion's coat with warm water, carefully avoiding the bandaged areas. The animal's initial panic had subsided into weary acceptance, his dark eyes following the girl's movements with curious assessment. He needs a name, Sophie declared without looking up from her work. We can't just keep calling him the stallion or the horse. Layla leaned against the stall door, watching the careful interaction between injured animal and determined child. Any ideas? Sophie studied the horse thoughtfully, wiping away layers of mud to reveal patches of what appeared to be a rich black coat beneath. Midnight, she decided, because he came to us in the darkness but will shine again. The name might have seemed melodramatic from another child, but from Sophie, practical, unsentimental Sophie, who had faced her father's death and their subsequent hardships with stoic resilience, it carried different weight. It represented not just hope for the animal's recovery, but perhaps something deeper, a symbolic investment in the possibility of their own family's resurrection from financial destruction. Midnight it is, Layla agreed, reaching out to carefully stroke the stallion's neck. The animal tensed momentarily at her touch before relaxing, seemingly assessing her as trustworthy despite his obvious mistreatment. As darkness fell across Willow Creek Ranch, Layla finally returned to the house, leaving Sophie to complete Midnight's evening care. The east fence line remained unrepaired, another task added to tomorrow's already overwhelming list. Alone in the kitchen, Layla reviewed their financial situation once more, adding columns of figures that refused to balance no matter how she adjusted them. The 60-day deadline loomed impossibly, the required $37,000 as unreachable as the stars. Taking in an injured horse, regardless of Hero's optimistic assessment of potential value, had done nothing to improve their immediate prospects. Yet something had shifted subtly in the household's atmosphere. Sophie's renewed energy, the purposeful focus of caring for a creature more vulnerable than themselves, had temporarily displaced the grinding weight of impending failure. Sometimes, Layla reflected, the value of an action couldn't be calculated in simple financial terms. A truth her practical-minded husband had often acknowledged about her occasional impulsive generosity toward animals in need. As she finally prepared for bed, exhaustion settling into her bones after another day of fighting the inevitable, Layla found herself standing at the window, staring out toward the back barn where a single light still burned. Sophie had insisted on sleeping in the hayloft to monitor midnight through his first night, another echo of Mark, who had done the same countless times with injured animals during their early years together. What neither mother nor daughter could possibly anticipate as the storm finally began to subside over their struggling ranch was how this single act of compassion, taking in one injured horse despite their own desperate circumstances, would set in motion events that would transform not just their financial reality, but their understanding of value, justice, and second chances. All because Layla couldn't bring herself to turn away an animal in need, even when every practical consideration argued against it. The mystery embedded in Midnight's past, invisible beneath layers of mud and dried blood, would soon draw the attention of authorities far beyond their struggling farm, launching them into circumstances that would leave everyone from local veterinarians to federal investigators utterly speechless. The morning dawned clear after the previous day's relentless downpour, sunlight streaming through breaks in the clouds to illuminate puddles scattered across Willow Creek Ranch. Layla awoke before her alarm, her body conditioned by years of pre-dawn, rising to tend to animals before handling her mobile veterinary appointments. For a brief moment, the golden light filtering through faded curtains created an illusion of normalcy. Another day on the family ranch, responsibilities waiting but manageable. Then reality reasserted itself. 60 days until foreclosure. A new injured animal requiring care they could barely afford to provide. The crushing weight of these obligations settled back onto her shoulders as she dressed in work clothes worn, thin from years of use. In the barn, she found Sophie sitting on an overturned bucket beside Midnight's stall, dark circles under her eyes testifying to a sleepless night. "He spiked a fever around 3 a.m., Sophie explained without preamble. "I've been monitoring his temperature every hour like Dr. Nakamura showed me. It's coming down now, but he wouldn't eat until about 30 minutes ago." Layla studied the injured stallion over the stall door. Midnight stood with his weight shifted to favor his uninjured legs, head hanging lower than the previous evening. His breathing seemed labored, nostrils flaring slightly with each inhale. Despite these concerning signs, his eyes remained alert, watching their interaction with that same unsettling intelligence she'd noticed during his arrival. The sound of tires on gravel announced Hero's arrival. Moments later, the veterinarian entered the barn, medical bag in hand, his expression professionally neutral despite the early hour. "Fever in an already compromised patient is never something to wait on," Hero explained efficiently, unpacking. "Equipment. Sophie's detailed symptoms report was exactly what I needed. She's got the makings of a veterinarian herself." The examination that followed was methodical and thorough. Temperature check confirmed the fever Sophie had reported, though now declining. Lung sounds revealed concerning congestion in the lower respiratory tract. Most worrying were the stallion's vital signs: elevated heart rate, poor capillary refill time, and slightly grey mucous membranes, all pointing toward developing shock. "We need to get ahead of this immediately," Hero announced. "He's developing Pneumonia, likely from inhaling water during his time in the elements. Combined with his other injuries and malnutrition, his system is overwhelmed. The next hour passed in focused medical intervention. Hero administered intravenous antibiotics, anti-inflammatory medications, and specialized electrolyte solutions. Sophie assisted with the efficiency of someone far beyond her years, anticipating needs and calming the horse during more invasive procedures. By the time Sophie reluctantly left for school, Midnight's condition had stabilized somewhat. His breathing remained labored but less desperate, his posture slightly more natural, his willingness to accept water a positive sign. After Hero departed for his regular clinic hours, Layla found herself alone with Midnight, the quiet of the barn broken only by the stallion's labored breathing and the occasional soft nickering from patients in the neighboring stall. Despite her practical nature, Layla found herself speaking to the injured animal as she adjusted his water bucket. "You picked a challenging time to need help, boy," she said softly, carefully checking the IV line Hero had established. "Not sure we've got much to offer, but we'll do what we can." Midnight's dark eyes followed her movements, his ears pricked forward at the sound of her voice. There was something undeniably compelling about his attention. Not the unfocused awareness of typical livestock, but the directed intelligence of an animal accustomed to human interaction at a sophisticated level. The morning proceeded, with Layla dividing her attention between necessary ranch tasks and Midnight's care. The damaged fencing required immediate attention, especially after the previous day's storm. Her 2 remaining client appointments had to be rescheduled. Bills needed sorting into categories of urgent and terminal, as she'd grimly come to label them. Each task represented another demand on time and energy already stretched beyond sustainable limits. By mid-afternoon, Layla had managed the most critical ranch operations while maintaining Midnight's care schedule as directed. The stallion's condition seemed to have stabilized, not improving dramatically, but no longer actively deteriorating. When Hero returned for his promised follow-up visit, he found Layla carefully cleaning the wounds on the horse's flank, her movements gentle, despite her exhausted appearance. "His fever's down another degree," she reported without looking up from her task. Breathing still labored but less distressed, took some water and a little of the specialized feed around noon. Hero's examination was as thorough as the morning's had been, but his expression gradually shifted from clinical concern to cautious optimism. "The antibiotics are already showing effect. Lung sounds are slightly improved. Capillary refill time is normalizing, and the wound edges are showing early granulation." As Hero continued his examination, carefully checking each wound and monitoring vital signs, his hands paused suddenly over Midnight's left shoulder. He frowned, fingers probing a specific area with increased concentration. "What is it?" Layla asked, recognizing the shift in her friend's professional demeanor. "There's something here beneath the skin, not bone structure or muscle tissue, something more solid." Hero reached for his medical bag, extracting a handheld device. "Let me scan him again for a microchip. I did a quick check yesterday, but might have missed something with all the mud and blood." The device emitted a soft beep as Hero passed it over various areas of Midnight's body, the standard locations where identification chips were typically implanted. When he reached the left shoulder area that had caught his attention, the device remained silent. "That's odd," he murmured, returning the scanner to his bag and retrieving a different instrument. "This is an ultrasound probe. Let's see what we're feeling." After several adjustments and repositioning, he stared at the small screen with increasing perplexity. There's definitely something there. Not organic. Too uniform in density. Approximately cylindrical, about the size of a large vitamin capsule. It's not a standard identification microchip. Wrong location, wrong size, and didn't register on the scanner. Layla leaned closer, studying the ultrasound image with limited comprehension. Something embedded accidentally, maybe from the accident? Hero shook his head slowly. The tissue around it shows complete healing, no recent trauma. This was deliberately placed there some time ago. He continued examining the mysterious object from different angles. I've never seen anything quite like it. Almost looks like. But that wouldn't make sense. Like what? Layla prompted when he didn't continue. Like a specialized tracking device, Hero finished reluctantly, but far more sophisticated than typical livestock identification technology. This looks more like something you'd see in military applications or high-security tracking. The implication hung between them, too outlandish to be immediately embraced, yet too intriguing to dismiss. Layla studied Midnight with renewed assessment, trying to reconcile the injured, malnourished animal before her with Hero's suggestion of sophisticated surveillance technology. If he's carrying military-grade tracking technology, why was he wandering injured on a county road? She asked practically. Wouldn't someone be searching for him? That's the question, isn't it? Hero agreed. Valuable assets don't typically disappear without extensive search efforts. Something doesn't add up here. The mystery added another layer of complexity to their already complicated situation. Layla had agreed to shelter an injured animal out of basic compassion and loyalty to an old friend. The possibility that Midnight might represent something more significant, potentially valuable, but also possibly problematic, created new considerations. Hero continued organizing treatment supplies while providing detailed care instructions. The antibiotics need to be administered every 6 hours. Watch for changes in respiratory rate or increased nasal discharge. The thermometer readings should be logged on this chart. What should we do about this implant? Layla asked, the practical veterinarian seeking clear direction. Hero considered the question thoughtfully. First, continue the medical treatment. That's non-negotiable regardless of his origins. Second, I'd like to document this unusual implant properly and consult with some colleagues who might recognize the technology. Third, we should be prepared for the possibility that someone might come looking for him. You think that's likely? Layla asked, instinctively glancing toward the ranch's entrance, as though expecting immediate arrival of claimants. I honestly don't know, Hero admitted, but if this is what I think it might be, Midnight isn't just any injured horse. He could be connected to classified operations, international smuggling, or other high-stakes enterprises. Those worlds operate by different rules than ordinary animal care. Keep this between us for now, Layla decided after consideration. No point speculating until we have more information. Focus on getting him healthy first, then worry about who might come looking. Sophie returned from school shortly after Hero's departure, dropping her backpack by the barn door and heading directly to Midnight's stall. The transformation in her daughter's demeanor was striking, the weary resignation that had shadowed her for months, partially lifted by purposeful concern for the injured animal. What Layla didn't mention was Hero's discovery of the mysterious implant, or his speculations about Midnight's potential connections. Until they had more definitive information, sharing such theories with Sophie might create hopes or concerns equally unwarranted. The remainder of the day passed in the rhythm of required tasks: Midnight's care schedule, routine ranch operations, dinner preparation, and Sophie's homework assistance. Layla found herself checking the driveway more frequently than usual, a subconscious response to Hero's suggestion that someone might come looking for the injured stallion. After dinner, Layla returned to the barn for Midnight's evening treatment session to find Sophie already there, carefully following the medication protocol Hero had established. Her daughter's focused competence caused a bittersweet recognition. Pride, in her capabilities, mingled with regret that circumstances had forced her to mature beyond her years. Their negotiated compromise involved Sophie remaining until Midnight's Tenkel medication administration before returning to the house for sleep. School night rules still applied, despite the extraordinary circumstances. Layla found herself alone in the barn shortly afterward. The night sounds of the ranch, a familiar symphony, distant coyotes, the occasional soft nickering of patients, wind through the old willow tree that gave their property its name. As midnight approached, Layla made a final check on Midnight before planning a few hours of sleep. The stallion's condition remained stable, his breathing still labored but consistent, his willingness to accept water from her hand a positive indicator. "Who are you, really?" she asked quietly, stroking his neck with gentle movements. "And why were you wandering alone on Route 16? Midnight's dark eyes regarded her without answers, though his ears flicked forward at the sound of her voice. Whatever secret he carried, in his bloodline, in the mysterious implant, in the circumstances of his abandonment, remained hidden behind that intelligent gaze. Layla settled onto the hay bale Sophie had vacated, planning a brief rest before Midnight's next medication schedule at 2 a.m. Despite her intention to remain alert, exhaustion from the day's physical demands, combined with the emotional strain of their precarious circumstances, pulled her towards sleep. The sound that woke her came from outside, tires on gravel and an engine idling briefly before cutting off. Layla checked her watch, 3:24 a.m. Far too early for any routine visitor, too late for even emergency veterinary calls. Instantly alert, she moved to the barn door, easing it open enough to observe the farmyard without being immediately visible. A black sedan with government plates had parked near the house, its headlights extinguished. The vehicle's official appearance and unmarked style suggested law enforcement rather than casual visitor. As Layla watched, the driver's door opened, and a woman emerged. Tall, professionally dressed despite the hour, moving with the confident precision of someone with authority rather than hesitation. She was followed by a man in similar professional attire, his bearing suggesting military training despite the civilian clothes. Before Layla could determine an appropriate response, the visitors approached the house directly, the woman's hand moving to what appeared to be a badge case on her belt. When they reached the door, the woman knocked firmly, the sound carrying across the quiet property. The unexpected development created immediate confusion. Federal agents didn't typically appear at private residences at 3 a.m. without serious cause. Layla's mind immediately connected their arrival to Hero's concerns about Midnight's mysterious implant and possible criminal connections. Concern for Sophie propelled Layla toward the house, protective instinct momentarily overriding caution about confronting federal authorities without understanding their purpose. As she crossed the muddy farmyard, lights illuminated inside the house, suggesting Sophie had been awakened by the knocking. Layla quickened her pace, determined to reach her daughter before she interacted with the unexpected visitors. She entered through the kitchen door to find Sophie standing uncertainly in the hallway, still in her pajamas, while the woman showed identification through the partially opened front door. "Sophie, I've got this," Layla called, moving quickly to the door. Her daughter's relief was visible as she stepped back, allowing her mother to take control of the situation. Layla opened the door fully to find the woman holding up credentials that identified her as Special Agent Diana Reeves, Department of Homeland Security. Her companion's identification showed him to be Agent Marcus Bell from the same agency. "Dr. Layla Morgan?" Agent Reeves asked, her tone professional rather than accusatory. "Yes," Layla confirmed, fighting to keep her voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. "Can I help you? It's rather late for a house call." "I apologize for the hour, Dr. Morgan," Agent Reeves replied with unexpected courtesy. "We're here regarding an animal you recently took into your care, a black stallion found on Route 16 yesterday. We have reason to believe this animal is connected to an ongoing federal investigation. The confirmation of Hero's suspicions created immediate unease, though Layla maintained a calm exterior. The horse was brought to me by Dr. Hiro Nakamura, the county veterinarian, for emergency medical care. He's currently in critical but stable condition. Agent Bell spoke for the first time, his tone measured but authoritative. We need to examine the animal immediately. The tracking device he's carrying contains information critical to national security. Layla's protective instincts, both for the injured animal and for her daughter, surged forward. The stallion is under intensive veterinary care for multiple life-threatening conditions. Any disruption to his treatment protocol could compromise his survival. Agent Reeves's expression softened slightly, suggesting genuine concern rather than bureaucratic indifference. We understand the animal's welfare is a priority, Dr. Morgan. We're not here to interfere with necessary medical treatment. We simply need to extract data from the embedded device and document the animal's condition. Sophie had moved closer. During this exchange, her expression revealing both fear and fascination at the unfolding situation. Mom, what's happening? What do they want with Midnight? The girl's use of the name created a momentary shift in the agent's demeanor, a subtle exchange of glances that suggested the name held significance beyond simple identification. You've named him Midnight? Agent Bell asked, his tone carefully neutral, despite the apparent interest in the detail. Yes, Sophie answered before Layla could intervene, because he came to us in the darkness but will shine again. Something in the poetic explanation seemed to resonate with Agent Reeves, her professional demeanor softening further. That's a fitting name considering his circumstances. Layla placed a protective arm around Sophie's shoulders. Perhaps we could continue this conversation while I check on his condition. He's due for medication, and any delay could compromise his treatment. The agents agreed, following Layla and Sophie across the moonlit farmyard to the barn. The contrast between their polished government appearance and the weathered agricultural setting created visual dissonance that mirrored the surreal nature of the situation. Inside the barn, Midnight's condition commanded immediate attention. The stallion had risen despite his weakness, standing alert with ears forward as though anticipating their arrival. His reaction to the agents was striking, immediate recognition rather than the wariness typically shown to strangers. "Hello, Shadow," Agent Reeves said softly, using a name that confirmed Layla's suspicions about the horse's significant past. The stallion's immediate response, a soft nickering and step forward despite his injuries, demonstrated clear familiarity. "His real name is Shadow?" Sophie asked, confusion evident in her voice. Agent Bell nodded, his expression revealing genuine connection to the animal. Shadow has been part of a specialized program for the past 4 years. His disappearance 3 weeks ago triggered a multi-agency search operation. Layla moved to check Midnight's or Shadow's vital signs, professional responsibility overriding curiosity about the unfolding revelations. His fever's up again. The respiratory infection is still compromising his oxygen levels. Whatever you need to do needs to happen quickly and with minimal stress to him. Agent Reeves nodded, extracting specialized equipment from a case she'd brought from the car. This will only take a few minutes. The extraction process is non-invasive. We simply need to download data from the tracking device. As the agent worked, positioning the equipment over the area Hiro had identified earlier, Layla administered the scheduled medications through the IV line. Sophie watched the process with wide-eyed fascination, her earlier fear transformed by the revelation that their rescue animal had connections to government operations. "May I ask what kind of program Shadow was part of?" Layla questioned carefully, professional curiosity overcoming caution about federal boundaries. Agent Bell considered the question before responding. Shadow is part of the Equine Border Security Initiative, a classified program utilizing specially trained horses for patrol in remote border areas inaccessible to vehicles or too rugged for standard operations. His tracking implant contains movement data from regions under surveillance for specialized smuggling operations. This partial explanation, while carefully avoiding classified details, confirmed Hiro's suspicions about both sophisticated tracking technology and potential criminal connections. What remained unclear was how such a valuable asset had ended up injured and abandoned on a rural highway. Agent Reeves completed the data extraction, her expression reflecting satisfaction with the results. "We've got it. 3 weeks of tracking data intact, including the Rivera cartel's new mountain route. This could potentially close down their entire eastern operation." The casual reference to cartel activities created immediate concern about potential danger to both the animal and the Morgan family. If Shadow escaped from cartel handlers, could they be looking for him? Layla asked directly, protective instinct extending beyond immediate medical considerations. Agent Bell's expression confirmed her concerns before he verbalized them. "It's a possibility we need to consider. Shadow's injuries are consistent with an escape scenario rather than intentional abandonment. The cartel would have significant interest in recovering both the animal and the tracking data he carries." This revelation transformed their already complicated situation from simple animal rescue to potential security risk. Layla exchanged worried glances with Sophie, whose initial excitement at the cloak and dagger scenario was rapidly giving way to recognition of possible danger. "What happens now?" Layla asked practically. "Shadow needs continued intensive care for at least 2 weeks before he could safely be transported to another facility." Agent Reeves consulted briefly with her colleague before responding. "Now that we've extracted the critical data, our immediate security concerns are significantly reduced. However, standard protocol would require relocating the animal to a secured facility for both his protection and continued evidence preservation." Sophie's expression reflected immediate distress at the prospect of losing the animal she'd become attached to, while Layla's professional concern focused on the medical risks of transport in his compromised condition. "Moving him in his current state could kill him," Layla stated firmly, veterinary authority evident in her tone. "The pneumonia alone creates significant transport risk, not to mention his other injuries. As his treating veterinarian, I cannot medically clear him for relocation at this time." The professional assessment created procedural complication the agents hadn't anticipated. Agent Bell conferred quietly with Agent Reeves before offering a compromise. "Given the medical considerations, we could potentially implement security protocols here temporarily," he suggested. "We'd need to establish perimeter monitoring and regular agent presence until the animal's condition stabilizes sufficiently for safe transport." This solution addressed both the security concerns and medical necessities, though it would transform their quiet ranch into something resembling a government outpost, a significant disruption to their already challenging circumstances. Before Layla could respond, Shadow's condition suddenly deteriorated. The stallion's breathing became more labored, his legs trembling as he struggled to remain standing. Both Layla and Agent Reeves, who apparently had medical training, moved simultaneously to support him. "He's crashing," Layla announced, professional urgency overriding all other considerations. "Sophie, get the emergency kit. Agent Bell, I need you to help lower him carefully to avoid injury." The next 20 minutes passed in focused crisis intervention, with all 4 humans working to stabilize the stallion's condition. Layla administered emergency medications, while Agent Reeves assisted with oxygen delivery using equipment from her vehicle. Agent Bell provided strength where needed, while Sophie monitored vital signs with remarkable composure for a 12-year-old. By the time Shadow's conditions stabilized, the dynamics between the four had transformed, shared crisis, creating unexpected connection across professional boundaries and age differences. The federal agents demonstrated both medical knowledge and genuine concern for the animal that transcended official protocols. As dawn approached, Shadow rested more comfortably on clean bedding, his breathing still compromised, but no longer critically unstable. Agent Reeves had established a preliminary security perimeter using equipment from their vehicle, while Agent Bell coordinated with their headquarters regarding ongoing protection arrangements. "You saved his life," Agent Reeves acknowledged to Layla as they stepped outside the barn to discuss next steps. "Our veterinary team couldn't have done better under these field conditions." "He's a fighter," Layla responded, professional modesty deflecting the praise. "But he's still far from stable. The next 72 hours will be critical for his respiratory function." Agent Bell joined them, ending his call with headquarters. "We've arranged for a security team to rotate shifts beginning at 800 hours. They'll establish unobtrusive perimeter monitoring while maintaining regular patrol presence. Dr. Morgan, you and your daughter will receive temporary security clearances to allow continued care responsibilities while maintaining protocol compliance." The formal language barely disguised what was essentially a federal takeover of their property, though conducted with surprising consideration for both their privacy and Shadow's medical needs. Layla found herself simultaneously grateful for the protection and concerned about the implications for their already precarious financial situation. "What about our regular operations?" she asked practically. "I run a mobile veterinary practice from this property, and we have limited boarding clients. How will security protocols affect those activities?" Agent Reeves addressed the practical concerns with unexpected understanding. "We'll implement adaptive security measures that minimize disruption to your legitimate business operations. Client access can continue with appropriate screening procedures. Your mobile practice can operate normally, though we'll need to coordinate scheduling for documentation purposes." As they discussed logistics, Sophie emerged from the barn, exhaustion evident in her young face despite the excitement of the extraordinary situation. "Shadow's resting," she reported with the precision of someone who understood the importance of accurate medical updates. "His breathing is easier since the last medication, and his temperature is down 0.5 degrees. Agent Bell checked his watch. "The security team will arrive in approximately 3 hours. You should both try to get some rest before then. We'll maintain watch over Shadow." The suggestion of rest seemed almost absurd, given the adrenaline still coursing through Layla's system from both the medical crisis and the revelation of Shadow's significant background. Yet exhaustion pulled at her consciousness, the cumulative effect of stress, physical exertion, and emotional upheaval threatening to overwhelm her professional composure. "Let me check Shadow once more, then we'll try to get some sleep," she agreed, guiding Sophie back toward the house with protective instinct that transcended the extraordinary circumstances. Inside the farmhouse, the mundane reality of their financial crisis seemed temporarily suspended by the dramatic developments surrounding Shadow. The foreclosure notice still sat on the kitchen counter, but its looming deadline suddenly seemed less immediate against the backdrop of federal investigations and cartel connections. As Sophie finally settled into bed, her young mind struggling to process the night's events, she asked the question that had been forming since the agent's arrival. "Mom, what happens when Shadow gets better? Will they take him away?" The question carried layers of meaning beyond simple animal attachment. In the brief time since midnight, now Shadow had arrived. He had become symbol of possibility and purpose for a family desperately in need of both. His uncertain future mirrored their own, creating emotional investment that transcended rational assessment. "Let's focus on getting him healthy first," Layla answered, echoing her earlier advice with new significance. "Everything else will sort itself out." As she finally lay down for a brief rest before the security team's arrival, Layla's thoughts raced with the implications of the night's revelations. The injured horse they had taken in out of compassion had transformed their struggling ranch into nexus of federal security operations and potential cartel interest, a development that created both unprecedented danger and unexpected opportunity. What remained unclear as she drifted into exhausted sleep was how these extraordinary circumstances might affect their impending financial crisis. The foreclosure clock continued its relentless countdown despite the dramatic developments, creating unsettling parallel between Shadow's uncertain medical prognosis and their farm's precarious future. The morning sun would bring federal security teams, potential cartel threats, and continued struggle for Shadow's survival. Complications far beyond what Layla had anticipated when agreeing to shelter one injured horse. Yet beneath these challenges lay possibility of connection to resources and opportunities previously unimaginable for a struggling single mother facing imminent financial collapse. Shadow's mysterious past and uncertain future had become inextricably linked with their own, creating unexpected alliance that would test both their resilience and their capacity for hope in the face of mounting challenges. Layla woke to the sound of unfamiliar voices outside her window. For a moment, disorientation clouded her thoughts before the events of the night rushed back. The federal agents, Shadow's medical crisis, the revelation of criminal connections that had transformed their simple act of compassion into something far more complex. The digital clock beside her bed showed 7:42 a.m. She had slept barely 3 hours, yet adrenaline pushed exhaustion aside as she quickly dressed and checked on Sophie, who remained deeply asleep despite the increasing activity outside. Let her rest, Layla thought. The day ahead would demand resilience from all of them. Outside, Willow Creek Ranch had been subtly transformed. 3 unmarked government vehicles were now positioned strategically around the property. Men and women in casual clothing that couldn't quite disguise their law enforcement training moved with purposeful efficiency, establishing what Agent Reeves had called unobtrusive perimeter monitoring. Agent Bell stood near the main barn, coordinating the security implementation while consulting a tablet computer. He nodded acknowledgement as Layla approached. "Dr. Morgan, I hope we didn't wake you. We're establishing minimal visible presence while maintaining comprehensive coverage. Your routine activities should proceed with limited interference." His professional courtesy didn't quite mask the reality that her small ranch was now effectively a government operation. Layla pushed aside her unease, focusing on her immediate priority. "I need to check on Shadow," she said, already moving toward the back barn where the injured stallion was stabled. Inside, she found Agent Reeves monitoring the horse's condition, alongside a new individual, a man in his 50s, whose bearings suggested both medical training and military background. "Dr. Morgan, this is Dr. James Harrison, our team's veterinary specialist," Agent Reeves introduced. "He's been monitoring Shadow's condition for the past hour." The older veterinarian extended his hand with professional courtesy. "Dr. Morgan, Agent Reeves speaks highly of your emergency intervention last night. Shadow's vital signs have stabilized impressively given his condition." Layla appreciated the respect evident in his tone, acknowledgement of her professional capabilities, rather than federal authorities superseding local expertise. She conducted her own examination, finding Shadow indeed improved from his crisis state. The stallion's breathing remained compromised, but less labored, his temperature reduced, and his eyes more alert and responsive. The antibiotic protocol you established appears effective against the pneumonia, Dr. Harrison observed. I've taken the liberty of supplementing with additional immune support from our field kit, if that meets with your approval. The collaborative approach represented welcome partnership, rather than jurisdictional conflict. Layla reviewed the medications he'd administered, finding them appropriate and potentially beneficial additions to her treatment plan. His cardiovascular status concerns me more than the respiratory infection at this point, she noted, listening carefully to Shadow's heart. There's a slight murmur developing that suggests potential endocarditis secondary to the systemic infection. Dr. Harrison nodded agreement. I caught that as well. I've requested specialized cardiac monitoring equipment from our main facility. It should arrive by noon. As they continued their professional consultation, Sophie appeared at the barn door, her expression transitioning from sleepy confusion to focused concern as she absorbed the increased activity around their property. "Is Shadow okay?" she asked, moving immediately to the stallion's stall with the single-minded focus of a child who had found purpose amid chaos. "He's improved since last night," Layla assured her. "Dr. Harrison has been helping with his care." Sophie studied. The new veterinarian with the direct assessment that occasionally made adults uncomfortable. "Are you going to take Shadow away when he's better?" The straightforward question created momentary tension, highlighting the underlying reality that Shadow remained government property despite their emotional investment in his recovery. "Doctor," Harrison answered with unexpected gentleness, "Shadow's future assignment will depend on multiple factors, including his full recovery and program reassessment. What's certain is that he'll receive the best possible care, thanks in large part to you and your mother." The diplomatic response acknowledged Sophie's concern without making promises beyond his authority. Layla appreciated his honesty with her daughter, respecting her intelligence while maintaining appropriate boundaries around classified information. Agent Reeves's phone vibrated with an incoming message. After checking the screen, her expression shifted to increased alertness. "We have movement on the surveillance perimeter. 2 vehicles observed making repeat passes on the county road within the past hour. Possible reconnaissance activity." The casual reference to potential threat transformed the barn's atmosphere from medical consultation to security operation. Dr. Harrison immediately moved toward equipment cases that apparently contained more than veterinary supplies, while Agent Reeves coordinated response through her communication device. "What does that mean?" Sophie asked, instinctively moving closer to Shadow's stall in protective stance that mirrored her mother's posture. Layla placed reassuring hands on her daughter's shoulders while addressing Agent Reeves. "Are we in danger? Should Sophie be moved to a different location?" The agent's professional composure provided measured reassurance. "We have comprehensive security protocols in place. The perimeter team has deployed countermeasures that will alert us to any unauthorized approach. As a precaution, we're implementing enhanced surveillance and response readiness, but there's no immediate threat to the property or your family." Dr. Harrison added practical context while continuing his medical duties. Shadow's tracking implant was designed with specialized encryption. Without the extraction equipment Agent Reeves used last night, any attempt to access or locate the device would be ineffective. The cartel would have no way to confirm his presence here without visual confirmation. This information created modest reassurance, though Layla's protective instincts remained elevated. "Sophie, I think you should stay inside the house today, instead of your usual barn chores." Her daughter's immediate objection was predictable. "But Shadow needs me, and I have to help with his medications." Before Layla could respond, Agent Bell entered the barn, his expression revealing controlled urgency rather than immediate alarm. We've identified the surveillance vehicles. One is registered to Westlake Equestrian Center, owned by Alexander Chambers. The name meant nothing to Layla, but clearly carried significance to the federal agents. Agent Reeves and Dr. Harrison exchanged meaningful glances before Reeves explained. Alexander Chambers owns one of the largest thoroughbred training operations in 3 states. His facilities have been under investigation for suspected money laundering and connection to international smuggling operations, though we've never gathered sufficient evidence for prosecution. You think he's connected to Shadow's disappearance? Layla asked, connecting elements of the unfolding situation. Chambers' operation would provide perfect cover for moving valuable assets across state lines without scrutiny, Agent Bell confirmed. Legitimate horse transport contains natural concealment opportunities for contraband. Shadow's tracking data may have captured movement patterns that implicate Chambers' facilities. This revelation added another layer to Shadow's significance beyond the tracking data he carried. If the stallion could physically identify specific locations and individuals connected to smuggling operations, his value as living evidence in federal prosecution would be immeasurable, and his danger from those he could implicate correspondingly elevated. Agent Reeves continued coordinating security response through her communication device, while Dr. Harrison and Layla focused on Shadow's medical needs. Sophie remained stubbornly beside the stallion's stall, her young face set with determination that transcended her years. "I'm staying with Shadow," she declared with finality that reminded Layla strikingly of Mark. "If bad people are looking for him, he needs us even more." The simple statement contained profound truth beyond the immediate security concerns. Shadow's welfare now represented more than medical recovery. It symbolized protection of justice against criminal elements that would sacrifice animals and people alike for profit. Sophie's instinctive recognition of this moral imperative reflected values Layla and Mark had cultivated throughout their daughter's upbringing. "You can stay for now," Layla conceded. "But you follow Agent Reeves's instructions immediately if the situation changes." The morning progressed with surface normalcy, belied by underlying tension. Dr. Harrison and Layla continued Shadow's treatment with the specialized cardiac monitoring equipment that arrived as promised. Agent Reeves maintained security coordination while establishing what she called visible innocuous presence. Agents disguised as feed delivery personnel or routine agricultural service providers, maintaining property coverage that would appear unremarkable to casual observation. By midday, the ranch outwardly resembled its usual self, though with subtle additions that transformed its security profile. Solar-powered cameras disguised as birdhouses monitored approach routes. Motion sensors concealed in fence posts created invisible perimeter alert system. Communications equipment established secure connection to federal response teams stationed within minutes of their location. Layla found herself simultaneously grateful for the protection and concerned about the escalating circumstances. The 60-day foreclosure deadline continued its relentless approach, regardless of extraordinary developments. Her mobile veterinary appointments remained necessary income they couldn't afford to cancel, yet leaving the property created both security and emotional complications given Shadow's condition. As she discussed these practical concerns with Agent Reeves in the kitchen while preparing lunch for Sophie, unexpected vehicles approached the main gate. The security system immediately alerted them to 3 incoming vehicles. A black SUV followed by 2 pickup trucks with horse trailers. Agent Reeves consulted her monitoring device. Professional calm masking increased alertness. Lead vehicle registered to Alexander Chambers personally. 6 individuals in the convoy based on thermal imaging, all showing body temperature signatures consistent with concealed weapons. The calm assessment of armed approach created immediate fear that Layla struggled to control for Sophie's sake. What do? We implement contingency protocol. 3, Agent Reeves replied with practiced efficiency. Dr. Harrison will remain with Shadow while Agent Bell coordinates our tactical response team. You and Sophie will be relocated to the secure room we've prepared in your basement storage area. Sophie's objection was immediate and vehement. I'm not hiding in the basement while Shadow is in danger. He needs me. Layla understood her daughter's protective instinct while recognizing the necessity of security protocols. Before she could intervene, Agent Reeves addressed Sophie directly, her tone shifting from professional detachment to genuine connection. Sophie, the most important thing you can do for Shadow right now is stay safe. If these people believe they can use you or your mother to get to him, it puts everyone in greater danger. The safest thing for Shadow is knowing you're protected. The strategic reframing, presenting safety compliance as protection for Shadow, rather than herself, resonated with Sophie's priority in a way that direct authority would not have achieved. Her resistance visibly wavered as she processed this perspective. "Can I check on him before we go to the safe room?" she asked, compromise. Replacing outright refusal, Agent Reeves checked her tactical display before nodding. "Quickly, the vehicles are still at the perimeter checkpoint. We have approximately 4 minutes before potential confrontation." They moved swiftly to the barn, finding Dr. Harrison already implementing medical security protocols, gathering essential treatment supplies into portable kits while securing Shadow's monitoring equipment for potential relocation if necessary. Sophie approached the stallion with remarkable composure for a 12-year-old facing armed threat. Her movements were gentle but efficient as she stroked his neck and spoke quietly into his ear. Shadow responded with alert attention, his ears pricked forward and eyes focused on her with unmistakable recognition. "I have to go keep safe for a while," she told him with simple honesty that acknowledged his intelligence. "But Mom's friend, Dr. Harrison, will stay with you, and the agents will protect you. I'll be back as soon as it's okay." Lou. The brief interaction contained emotional depth that transcended words, connection between child and animal that represented mutual trust amid threatening circumstances. Layla felt unexpected emotion watching her daughter's courage, recognizing that Sophie was facing this crisis with resilience that many adults would struggle to maintain. Agent Bell appeared at the barn entrance, his expression revealing controlled urgency. "Vehicles have reached the main gate. Tactical team in position. We need to move you to the secure location immediately." As they hurried toward the house, Layla glanced back to see agents taking positions around the property with practiced precision. Their casual clothing had been supplemented with tactical vests and communication equipment, transforming from unobtrusive presence to coordinated defense force. The secure room proved to be their walk-in pantry and storage area, reinforced with portable armor panels and equipped with communication devices, water supplies, and even Sophie's tablet loaded with books and games. Evidence of detailed preparation that both reassured and unsettled Layla. How long had they anticipated potential conflict? What weren't they sharing about Shadow's significance? "Standard procedure for civilian protection," Agent Reeves explained, recognizing Layla's unspoken questions. "We implement comprehensive security regardless of threat assessment level. The reinforcement is precautionary rather than expectation." A monitoring screen showed multiple views of the property, including the main entrance where the vehicles had now stopped. From the lead SUV emerged a man whose appearance conveyed wealth and authority without effort. Expensive, casual clothing, confident posture, and the easy command of someone accustomed to deference. Alexander Chambers, Agent Reeves identified. Quietly, owner of Westlake Equestrian Center and suspected financial facilitator for the Rivera Cartel's East Coast operations. Behind Chambers, 4 men exited the pickup trucks, their bearings suggesting security personnel, despite their carefully casual appearance. They positioned themselves strategically around the vehicles, maintaining what appeared to be relaxed posture while establishing clear coverage of approach routes. Chambers approached the main house where Agent Bell waited on the porch, presenting the appearance of ordinary property manager rather than federal agent. Their conversation was audible through the monitoring system, the seemingly casual exchange, carrying layers of veiled confrontation beneath surface courtesy. "Good afternoon," Chambers began, his voice cultured and pleasant. "I'm Alexander Chambers from Westlake Equestrian. I understand you recently took in an injured stallion found on Route 16. I believe he may be one of our valuable breeding prospects who escaped during transport 3 weeks ago." Agent Bell maintained his cover identity perfectly, his body language suggesting helpful confusion rather than alertness. The property owner, Dr. Morgan, did mention a rescue horse. "She's currently away on veterinary calls. Perhaps I could take your contact information and have her call you when she returns." Chambers smiled without warmth. "I'd prefer to confirm the animal's identity personally. Thoroughbreds of his caliber represent significant investment. My team can examine him briefly and verify identifying characteristics without disturbing Dr. Morgan's schedule." The polite phrasing barely disguised what was effectively demand rather than request. Agent Bell maintained his helpful facade while subtly blocking the porch steps. "I understand your concern, but Dr. Morgan left strict instructions about the animal's care. He's under intensive medical treatment for pneumonia and other injuries. Any disturbance could compromise his recovery. If you'd like to leave detailed description of your missing horse, I'd be happy to compare it with the rescued animal's characteristics." Chambers' expression hardened slightly, his tone losing some of its practiced affability. "Perhaps I haven't made myself clear. The animal in question represents nearly $500,000 in breeding investment. I have documentation of ownership and transport records in my vehicle. I insist on visual confirmation of his identity." The escalating tension was interrupted by new development, a county sheriff's vehicle approaching the property entrance. The unexpected arrival created visible recalculation in Chambers' demeanor, his aggressive posture subtly shifting to more careful presentation. "That's Sheriff Martinez," Layla whispered, recognizing the local law enforcement officer who had occasionally assisted with large animal rescues in the county. "He's a good friend of Heroes." Agent Reeves nodded, her expression suggesting this arrival was not entirely coincidental. "We maintain cooperative relationships with local law enforcement in operational areas. Their presence often provides useful situational modification without compromising federal jurisdiction." On the monitor, Sheriff Martinez approached with the unhurried confidence of local authority on familiar territory. His greeting to Chambers carried professional courtesy without deference. "Mr. Chambers, didn't expect to see Westlake Equestrian vehicles this far from your usual territory. Everything all right here, John?" he asked Agent Bell, using the cover name established for his operation. "Just a misunderstanding about an injured horse Dr. Morgan's been treating," Agent Bell replied with perfect casual familiarity. "Mr. Chambers believes it might be one of his breeding stallions." Sheriff Martinez nodded thoughtfully. "I heard about that rescue. Pretty bad shape when Dr. Nakamura brought him in. Pneumonia, injuries consistent with vehicle collision, doesn't match the usual condition of Westlake transportation, from what I've seen of your operation, Mr. Chambers." The subtle challenge in the sheriff's observation created visible tension in Chambers' security personnel, though their employer maintained composed exterior. Even the best transport protocols occasionally fail. Animals can panic during movement. create injuries during escape attempts. The timing and location align with our missing stallion's last known whereabouts. Interesting, Sheriff Martinez replied, his expression suggesting professional curiosity. I don't recall any reports of missing valuable breeding stock in the regional alert system. Most operations report high-value missing animals immediately. When exactly did you file your missing animal report? The question highlighted procedural inconsistency that Chambers couldn't easily explain. His momentary hesitation revealed calculation beneath his confident exterior. Administrative oversight during personnel transition, he offered smoothly. Our head of security was replaced shortly after the incident. I'll ensure proper documentation is filed retroactively. Sheriff Martinez maintained friendly professionalism that nonetheless contained unmistakable skepticism. Tell you what, since Dr. Morgan's unavailable and the animal's in medical isolation, why don't you provide detailed documentation to my office? Ownership papers, veterinary records, identifying marks and characteristics. Once verified, we can arrange proper supervised identification when the animal's condition permits. The procedural solution created impasse for Chambers. Refusing reasonable legal process would create suspicion, while providing documentation would require fabrication that might not withstand scrutiny. His expression revealed brief frustration before professional composure reasserted itself. Of course, Sheriff, I'll have my office forward complete documentation tomorrow. Please express to Dr. Morgan that Westlake Equestrian appreciates her care for our valuable property. We'll compensate her efforts appropriately once ownership transfer is completed. The subtle emphasis on ownership transfer carried veiled implication beyond surface courtesy, suggestion of inevitable outcome rather than potential identification. Sheriff Martinez appeared to notice this nuance, his professional smile not quite reaching his eyes. I'll certainly pass that along. Safe travels back to Westlake, Mr. Chambers. That's quite a drive from here, nearly 3 hours if I recall correctly. Quite a personal interest you're taking in this particular animal. The observation highlighted another inconsistency, unusual for operation owner to personally investigate missing livestock rather than sending staff representatives. Chambers acknowledged the point with slight nod that conceded tactical retreat without surrendering his ultimate objective. Some investments warrant personal attention, Sheriff. Good day. As the vehicles departed, Sophie released audible breath she'd apparently been holding throughout the confrontation. They're really after Shadow, aren't they? They're the bad people who hurt him. Agent Reeves nodded, her professional detachment softening when addressing the child. Alexander Chambers is what we call a facilitator, someone who creates legitimate-appearing business operations that hide illegal activities. His horse transport business provides perfect cover for moving things across state lines without normal inspection. But why is Shadow so important to them? Layla asked, voicing the question that had formed throughout their extraordinary circumstances. Even valuable breeding stallions don't warrant armed recovery operations. Agent Reeves hesitated, exchanging glances with Agent Bell, who had returned to the secure room after Chambers' departure. Their silent communication suggested decision about classification boundaries and disclosure necessity. Shadow isn't just any tracking animal, Agent Bell finally explained. He's the prototype for an entirely new intelligence-gathering approach. His implant doesn't just record locations. It captures chemical signatures, radiation levels, and biological markers present in environments he traverses. The technical explanation meant little to Sophie, but its implications were clear too. Layla, you're saying he can detect what's being transported through specific routes, identify substances without direct inspection? Agent Reeves nodded, Shadow's enhanced tracking system can distinguish between cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, and even weapons-grade materials through environmental trace detection. His 3 weeks in cartel transport operations may have captured more comprehensive trafficking evidence than years of conventional surveillance. This revelation explained both Shadow's extraordinary value to federal operations and the cartel's determination to recover him. The stallion represented not just incriminating evidence, but breakthrough detection capability that threatened entire smuggling infrastructure. If Chambers is looking for Shadow here, it confirms our theory that he's directly connected to cartel transport operations. Agent Bell continued. His presence creates probable cause for expanded surveillance authorization on his facilities and operations. The tactical victory this represented for their investigation was evident in the agent's demeanor, yet it did nothing to reduce the immediate threat to Shadow or the Morgan family. If anything, confirmation of Chambers' personal involvement elevated the danger level considerably. "What happens now?" Layla asked practically, the question encompassing both immediate security concerns and longer-term implications for their involvement in federal operations. "We maintain enhanced security protocols while continuing Shadow's medical treatment," Agent Reeves replied. "Chambers will likely attempt documentation fabrication to support his ownership claim. We'll counter through verification requirements and procedural delays until Shadow's condition permits secure relocation." The clinical assessment provided operational clarity without addressing the emotional investment Sophie had developed in Shadow's recovery. Layla could see her daughter processing these developments with the remarkable maturity she'd demonstrated throughout their challenges. Yet the prospect of Shadow's eventual removal remained painful reality beneath tactical considerations. "Can we go back to the barn now?" Sophie asked, her priority clearly established despite the security briefing. Shadow needs his afternoon medications, and he gets anxious when routines change. Agent Bell checked security monitors before nodding. "Perimeter shows clear status. Tactical team reports no surveillance activity within visual range. We'll maintain elevated alert status, but regular activities can resume with appropriate precautions." As they returned to the barn, Layla found herself evaluating their extraordinary circumstances from new perspective. The federal presence that had initially seemed disruptive intervention now represented protection against genuinely dangerous criminal elements. Shadow's significance extended beyond valuable animal to crucial evidence in dismantling operations that harmed communities through drug trafficking and violence. Inside the barn, Dr. Harrison was already administering Shadow's scheduled medications, his movements efficient but gentle. The stallion's condition showed continued improvement, his breathing less labored, his posture more natural, his eyes alert and responsive. "His cardiac function has stabilized," the veterinarian reported, showing Layla the monitoring data. "The endocarditis concerns are diminishing with targeted antibiotic therapy. His remarkable resilience continues to exceed medical expectations." Sophie moved immediately to Shadow's side, her presence eliciting visible positive response from the stallion. His ears pricked forward, his attention focused completely on the girl as she spoke softly to him while checking his water and feed. "You were so brave when those men came looking for you," she told him earnestly. "But you don't have to worry. Mom and I won't let them take you." The simple promise contained both heartbreaking naivety and profound truth. While federal jurisdiction would ultimately determine Shadow's assignment once recovered, the Morgan family's protection had indeed proven crucial link in preserving both his life and the evidence he carried. Dr. Harrison observed their interaction with professional interest that contained unexpected emotional dimension. "His response to your daughter is remarkable, beyond typical human-animal bonding patterns, almost as though he recognizes something in her specifically." Layla had noticed this connection as well. Shadow's attention to Sophie transcended normal, animal response to kind handling. His focus when she entered his vicinity suggested recognition beyond simple association with food or care. Sophie has her father's way with animals, Layla explained, watching their interaction with bittersweet recognition of Mark's legacy in their daughter. He could connect with the most traumatized rescues when everyone else had given up. Something about his presence just reached them. Agent Reeves had joined them silently, her observation of Shadow and Sophie containing professional assessment beyond security considerations. The Equine Border Security Initiative selection process prioritizes animals with unusual human recognition capabilities. Shadow was chosen specifically for his exceptional cognitive characteristics and bonding capacity. His connection with Sophie may represent recognition of compatible empathic patterns. The technical explanation contained profound implication. Shadow's extraordinary intelligence and awareness extended beyond typical animal limitations. His response to Sophie represented genuine connection rather than simply conditioned association, creating relationship that transcended conventional understanding of human-animal interaction. As afternoon sunlight filtered through the barn windows, illuminating dust motes in golden shafts above Shadow's stall, Layla found unexpected moment of peace amid their extraordinary circumstances. Despite armed federal agents patrolling their property, criminal organizations seeking their location, and financial ruin still looming on the horizon, something fundamental had shifted in their family dynamic. Purpose had replaced desperation. Protection had superseded vulnerability. Connection had transformed isolation. The simple act of saving one injured animal had drawn them into larger narrative of justice and courage that transcended their individual struggles. Shadow's breathing had settled into regular rhythm, his powerful body gradually recovering strength that would eventually return him to his remarkable capabilities. Sophie sat beside his stall, reading aloud from her favorite book as though the stallion could understand every word, and perhaps, Layla reflected, he understood more than conventional wisdom would suggest. The secure communication device Agent Reeves carried emitted soft alert tone, drawing her attention to incoming message. The agent's expression shifted subtly as she processed the information, professional composure not quite masking significance of whatever she had received. "We've just received authorization for Level 4 protective custody implementation," she informed Agent Bell, who had joined them after completing perimeter check. "Director Harrington has personally approved full operational support based on Shadow's data extraction analysis." Something in her tone suggested this development transcended standard procedure. Approval from organizational level that rarely engaged with field operations. Agent Bell's response confirmed this impression, his typically controlled demeanor showing momentary surprise. "Director Harrington personally reviewed the case. That's unprecedented for regional operations." Agent Reeves nodded, her voice lowered though still audible to Layla. "Shadow's tracking data has revealed coordinated transport patterns connecting 3 previously unlinked cartel operations. The evidence potentially identifies 5 customs officials accepting bribes for inspection bypasses and 7 interstate transfer stations serving as distribution hubs. This may be the most significant intelligence breakthrough in cross-border trafficking operations in a decade." The scope of Shadow's importance suddenly expanded beyond anything Layla had imagined, the injured stallion they had rescued from. Certain death carried evidence that could potentially dismantle entire criminal infrastructure, evidence that would never have been recovered had they not taken him in despite their desperate circumstances. Agent Bell processed this information with growing recognition of its significance. That explains Chambers' personal involvement. If Shadow's data can identify his direct participation in transportation coordination, it would provide the connection evidence we've been seeking for 5 years, Agent Reeves confirmed. The director has authorized full protective resource deployment, including relocation options for civilians with operational knowledge. This final phrase caught Layla's attention immediately. Relocation options. Are you suggesting we're in that much danger? Agent Reeves maintained professional composure while acknowledging the seriousness of their situation. Chambers' personal appearance confirms operational significance beyond standard recovery efforts. Once the cartel leadership recognizes Shadow's intelligence-gathering capabilities, they'll implement comprehensive containment protocols, including elimination of anyone with knowledge of his functions or data. The clinical assessment created immediate fear for Sophie, who remained blissfully focused on reading to Shadow, unaware of the escalating threat assessment discussion nearby. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Layla asked directly, protective, instinct overriding careful diplomacy. "For now, enhanced security continues while Shadow recovers," Agent Bell explained. "Once his condition permits safe transport, we'll implement coordinated relocation. Shadow to secure federal facility, you and Sophie to temporary protected housing until threat assessment determines safe return parameters." The practical explanation highlighted extraordinary transformation of their circumstances, from struggling single mother facing foreclosure to key witness requiring federal protection. The financial implications remained unaddressed amid security priorities, creating uncertainty that Layla couldn't ignore despite the apparent crisis. "And what happens to our home? This ranch represents everything we have left. The foreclosure deadline doesn't pause for federal investigations or witness protection." Agent Reeves exchanged meaningful glance with Dr. Harrison before responding. "The director's authorization includes financial stabilization protocols for civilian assets, critical to ongoing operations. Your property would qualify for protective management during investigation timeframe, including necessary financial interventions to maintain operational viability." The bureaucratic language contained extraordinary implication: federal resources, potentially addressing their financial crisis as component of witness protection rather than charitable intervention. Layla struggled to process this unexpected development amid the continuing security concerns and Shadow's ongoing medical needs. As sunlight began to fade outside the barn windows, the day's extraordinary developments created more questions than answers about their future. Yet amid this uncertainty, one reality remained clear. Their compassionate decision to rescue one injured horse had connected them to forces far larger than their individual struggles, creating possibility for transformation beyond anything they could have imagined. Shadow's mysterious past and uncertain future had become inextricably linked with their own, forming unexpected alliance against forces that threatened them all. The questions of tomorrow, where they would go, how their financial crisis might resolve, what Shadow's ultimate assignment would be, remained unanswered as evening approached Willow Creek Ranch. What had become undeniable was that courage, compassion, and connection formed foundation for resilience that transcended individual vulnerability. The Morgan family's simple act of kindness had triggered a chain of events that might ultimately bring justice to criminals who had operated beyond the law's reach for years. Powerful reminder that the smallest acts of compassion could create ripples of transformation far beyond their immediate circumstances. As Sophie continued reading softly to Shadow, his intelligent eyes focused on her with remarkable attention. Layla recognized that whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them with renewed purpose and unexpected allies. All because they couldn't turn away from one injured horse on a stormy night when every practical consideration argued against taking him in. 3 weeks later, Layla stood at the fence line of Willow Creek Ranch's main pasture, watching Shadow move. With increasing strength across the spring grass, his recovery had progressed remarkably once the respiratory crisis had been resolved. Dr. Harrison's specialized treatment protocols, combining with her own veterinary expertise and Sophie's devoted care to create healing that defied medical expectations. The morning sunlight caught his coat, now restored to glossy black that rippled over powerful muscles regaining their definition. His movement still showed slight hesitation on the previously injured leg, but his overall bearing had transformed from desperate survival to majestic power. It was difficult to reconcile this magnificent animal with the broken, bleeding creature they had taken in that stormy night that now seemed ages ago. So much had changed in those 3 weeks. The federal presence on their property had evolved, from emergency intervention to established operation. What had initially appeared as disruption had gradually integrated into a new normal. Agents rotating shifts with professional courtesy that respected their privacy while maintaining vigilant protection. Shadow's medical recovery had progressed alongside operational developments that had far-reaching implications beyond their small ranch. "He's magnificent, isn't he?" Agent Reeves observed, joining Layla at the fence. Over the weeks, the agent's professional detachment had gradually softened into something approaching friendship, though always maintaining appropriate boundaries around operational information. "It's hard to believe he's the same animal," Layla agreed, watching Shadow stretch into an experimental trot across the paddock. "Dr. Harrison says his lung capacity is nearly back to optimal levels. The cardiac concerns have completely resolved." Agent Reeves nodded, her expression suggesting both satisfaction at Shadow's recovery and awareness of what it represented for their operation. The director's weekly briefing included specific update requests about his rehabilitation progress. Shadow's value to the ongoing investigation continues to expand as analysis of his tracking data reveals new connection patterns. The reference to ongoing investigation highlighted the extraordinary developments of recent weeks. The data extracted from Shadow's sophisticated implant had indeed proven revolutionary in mapping cartel transportation networks. Combined with surveillance intelligence on Alexander Chambers' operations, it had triggered coordinated federal actions across 3 states. Actions carefully concealed from public awareness, while authorities built comprehensive case against organizations that had operated with impunity for years. "Any update on the financial stabilization protocols?" Layla asked, the practical question reflecting ongoing concern despite federal assurances about their property's security during investigation timeframe. Agent Reeves reached into her jacket, extracting an official envelope. "This arrived by secure courier this morning. The director authorized me to deliver it personally rather than through standard channels." Layla accepted the envelope with mixture of hope and trepidation. Despite repeated assurances from federal representatives, the foreclosure clock had continued its countdown in her mind, 60 days reduced to mere 17 remaining before Willow Creek Ranch would theoretically be seized for unpaid debts. No amount of federal protection could override financial institutions indefinitely without formal intervention. Inside the envelope, she found official documents on Department of Justice letterhead, legal language requiring careful reading to extract practical meaning. As she processed the contents, disbelief gradually gave way to stunned comprehension. "This can't be right," she murmured, rereading key passages to confirm her understanding. "This says the mortgage has been fully satisfied through the Asset Forfeiture Redistribution Program, and there's registration for a corporation called Morgan Equine Rehabilitation Services that now owns this property outright." Agent Reeves maintained professional composure despite evident satisfaction at Layla's reaction. The director authorized special application of witness security protocols, combined with asset redistribution from previously seized cartel properties. The documentation establishes legitimate business structure that provides both operational cover for continued federal presence and sustainable financial foundation for your family. The bureaucratic explanation barely masked extraordinary reality. Federal intervention had not merely delayed their financial crisis, but permanently resolved it through creative application of legal mechanisms designed for witness protection and crime victim restitution. Willow Creek Ranch was now apparently debt-free, owned through business entity established in their name, with operational budget funded through seized criminal assets. "I don't understand," Layla admitted, overwhelmed by implications that transcended anything she had imagined possible. "This goes far beyond temporary protection during an investigation. Shadow's tracking data has proven instrumental in what may become the most significant cartel prosecution in decades," Agent Reeves explained. "The evidence he gathered has already led to 17 arrests, including 3 previously unidentified high-level facilitators within financial institutions." Director Harrington authorized comprehensive application of witness protection and victim restitution protocols based on your family's critical role in preserving this evidence. The explanation framed their extraordinary circumstances within legal framework that nonetheless represented unprecedented application of federal resources. This wasn't simple witness protection, but comprehensive life reconstruction that acknowledged their contribution to justice. "What about Shadow?" Layla asked, the question that had lingered beneath practical concerns throughout their extraordinary journey. These documents mention something called the Equine Intelligence Rehabilitation Initiative, with operational headquarters listed at this address. Agent Reeves smiled, the professional expression containing genuine warmth that had developed through their shared experiences. That represents the most creative aspect of the director's authorization. Shadow's performance during rehabilitation has demonstrated exceptional recovery capacity that suggests potential for continued operational value within appropriate parameters. "You're saying he's staying here?" Layla clarified, hardly daring to believe the implication, given Sophie's deep attachment to the stallion. "With conditions," Agent Reeves qualified. "The initiative establishes specialized rehabilitation facility for equine assets recovering from operational deployment, essentially a recovery center for horses involved in federal programs. Shadow would serve as both rehabilitation model and continuing training resource while remaining under technical federal jurisdiction, but physically based here." The sophisticated arrangement represented creative solution that balanced operational security, animal welfare, and the emotional connection that had developed between Shadow and the Morgan family, particularly Sophie, whose dedicated care had proven instrumental in his remarkable recovery. Speaking of her daughter, Layla spotted Sophie emerging from the house, her expression transitioning from casual curiosity to focused interest upon seeing the official documents in her mother's hands. At 12, Sophie had demonstrated remarkable resilience throughout their extraordinary circumstances, adapting to federal presence on their property while maintaining dedicated focus on Shadow's rehabilitation. "What's happening?" she asked, joining them at the fence with characteristic directness. Layla exchanged glances with Agent Reeves, who nodded encouragement for transparent explanation appropriate to Sophie's involvement. "These papers show that we're keeping the ranch," Layla explained, simplifying complex legal mechanisms into essential meaning. "The government is helping us because of how we help Shadow." Sophie processed this information with typical practicality. "Does that mean they're not taking Shadow away?" The question highlighted her consistent priority throughout their journey: concern for the stallion's welfare above financial considerations or security complications. Agent Reeves addressed her directly, respecting her intelligence while maintaining appropriate disclosure boundaries. Shadow will continue his recovery here as part of a new program for special horses like him, she explained. Your mom's veterinary skills and your excellent care have shown that Willow Creek Ranch is the perfect place for this important work. Sophie's expression brightened with understanding beyond her years. So, we're going to help other horses like Shadow? Ones that have been hurt while helping catch bad people? The simplified characterization nonetheless captured essential purpose of the initiative described in the documents. Rehabilitation facility for equine assets involved in federal operations, providing specialized care for animals with unique operational experiences and medical needs. That's exactly right, Agent Reeves confirmed. Your mom's veterinary expertise and your special connection with Shadow make this the perfect place for this important work. Sophie's attention shifted immediately to practical implementation rather than emotional celebration, characteristic response that reflected her remarkable maturity. We'll need to fix the fencing on the north pasture, and the second barn needs new stall doors, and we should get proper rehabilitation equipment like they have at the Thompson's Therapy Center. Layla couldn't help smiling at her daughter's immediate shift to practical planning, even as her own mind struggled to process the extraordinary transformation of their circumstances. From the brink of financial collapse, they had been catapulted into specialized federal operation with stable funding and clear purpose aligned with their professional capabilities and personal values. The operational budget includes comprehensive facility enhancement, Agent Reeves noted, clearly impressed by Sophie's practical assessment. Renovation plans are already drafted based on Dr. Harrison's recommendations for optimal rehabilitation environments. As they discussed implementation details, Shadow approached the fence line, his powerful presence commanding attention despite ongoing recovery. His intelligent eyes focused on their interaction with unmistakable awareness, ears pricked forward to catch their conversation. Sophie moved immediately to greet him, her connection with the stallion evident in his responsive nickering and gentle nudge against her outstretched hand. I told you everything would work out, she said softly to the horse, though loud enough for the adults to overhear. Now we get to help other horses like you, and no one will take you away. The simple statement contained profound truth beyond the complex legal arrangements and federal authorizations. At its core, their extraordinary journey had been about connection, compassion, and courage in the face of overwhelming challenges, values that had ultimately transformed not just Shadow's fate, but their entire future. Dr. Harrison emerged from the barn, his professional demeanor not quite masking satisfaction at Shadow's visible progress. Over the weeks, the federal veterinarian had developed collaborative partnership with Layla that transcended operational necessity, his specialized knowledge complementing her practical experience in ways that had proven crucial to Shadow's exceptional recovery. His latest blood work shows remarkable improvement, he reported, joining their informal gathering. Organ function completely normalized, infection markers undetectable, muscle enzyme levels consistent with healthy rehabilitation. From medical perspective, he's essentially recovered apart from continued physical conditioning needs. The positive assessment created momentary tension beneath their celebration. Complete recovery technically meant Shadow could be transported to federal facilities rather than remaining at Willow Creek Ranch. However, the newly established initiative described in the documents provided framework for his continued presence as rehabilitation model and training resource. I've been authorized to discuss transition planning, Dr. Harrison continued, addressing the unspoken concern. Shadow's operational status has been officially modified to Rehabilitation Training Asset rather than Active Field Resource. This redesignation allows permanent assignment to the Equine Intelligence Rehabilitation Initiative based here, with specialized deployment only under extraordinary circumstances requiring his specific capabilities. The bureaucratic classification nonetheless represented significant victory. Shadow would remain at Willow Creek Ranch indefinitely, his specialized skills utilized primarily for training and rehabilitation support rather than active field operations that had previously placed him in danger. Sophie's expression reflected perfect understanding of this positive development despite the complex terminology. That means he stays with us and helps teach other horses, right? Dr. Harrison nodded, professional demeanor softening when addressing her direct question. Exactly. Shadow has unique experience that makes him invaluable for training other horses in the program. His connection with you provides emotional rehabilitation model that we've never had before in the initiative. The acknowledgement of Sophie's contribution contained remarkable validation of her intuitive approach to Shadow's care. Connection that had transcended conventional animal handling to establish trust-based relationship with extraordinary impact on his recovery. What might have seemed like childish attachment in ordinary circumstances had proven crucial component in rehabilitating uniquely intelligent animal with specialized capabilities. As they continued discussing implementation details, Sheriff Martinez's vehicle approached the property entrance. Unlike his previous visit during confrontation with Alexander Chambers, this appearance carried scheduled purpose, regular coordination with federal operations that had developed into effective partnership between local and federal law enforcement. Sheriff Martinez has been instrumental in managing local aspects of the investigation, Agent Reeves explained as they watched his approach. His office provided crucial support for surveillance operations at regional transportation facilities, identified through Shadow's tracking data. The sheriff joined their gathering with casual familiarity that belied sophisticated operational coordination beneath surface appearance of routine visit. Heard the special paperwork arrived today, he noted with meaningful glance at the documents Layla still held. Congratulations on the new rehabilitation initiative. Been needed in this region for years. His awareness of the classified arrangements confirmed high-level coordination between federal operations and local law enforcement. Partnership that had apparently expanded beyond immediate investigation into long-term regional security infrastructure. Any updates on Chambers? Agent Reeves asked, the question referencing ongoing surveillance rather than active confrontation following their initial encounter. Sheriff Martinez's expression suggested significant developments beneath professional composure. Federal warrant executed at Westlake Equestrian Center this morning at 0600 hours. Chambers taken into custody alongside 7 associates. Evidence recovery teams secured documentation connecting shipping operations to financial accounts in 3 countries. The casual report represented culmination of investigative efforts triggered by Shadow's tracking data, coordinated federal action against criminal enterprise that had operated with impunity for years. The implications extended far beyond single arrest to potential dismantling of entire smuggling infrastructure. The director authorized release of limited operational information given your family's involvement, Agent Reeves explained to Layla. Shadow's tracking data provided crucial evidence connecting Chambers directly to transportation coordination for controlled substances across state lines. The seizure includes documentation linking his operation to distribution networks in 7 cities. The scope of impact from their simple act of compassion, taking in one injured horse on stormy night, had expanded beyond anything imaginable. Shadow's survival had not merely transformed their individual circumstances, but potentially saved countless lives by disrupting drug trafficking operations throughout the region. Sheriff Martinez continued with information that transcended operational updates to personal connection. Thought you might want to know. The evidence teams recovered documentation about Shadow's acquisition. Apparently, he was purchased from military surplus auction after being classified as non-deployable following training injury. Chambers recognized his exceptional intelligence and physical capabilities despite the classification. This revelation provided missing piece in Shadow's mysterious background, connection between military training program and criminal exploitation that explained both his extraordinary capabilities and the sophisticated tracking implant he carried. Non-deployable doesn't mean incapable, Dr. Harrison noted, with professional understanding of military classification systems. It simply means he didn't meet specific deployment parameters for the original program. His intelligence and physical abilities remained exceptional, despite not fitting standardized operational requirements. The explanation highlighted how Shadow's unique characteristics, perhaps too independent or intuitive for standardized military protocols, had paradoxically made him perfect for both criminal exploitation and ultimate evidence gathering that brought down those same criminal enterprises. What had been deemed limitation in one context became extraordinary strength in another. As morning progressed into afternoon, the implications of their transformed circumstances gradually settled into practical reality. The documents provided framework for sustainable future that aligned their professional capabilities with meaningful purpose, while resolving financial crisis that had threatened everything they valued. Shadow's continued presence as rehabilitation model, rather than active field asset, ensured both his safety and Sophie's emotional connection that had proven so crucial to his recovery. Layla found herself watching her daughter with Shadow, their interaction representing everything that had changed in their lives since that stormy night. Sophie moved with confident purpose around the powerful stallion, her directions gentle but clear as she guided him through rehabilitation exercises Dr. Harrison had designed. Shadow responded with focused attention that transcended typical animal compliance, his intelligence evident in anticipation of commands and problem-solving approach to new challenges. "She's remarkable with him," Agent Reeves observed, joining Layla's contemplation of their interaction. "Our behavioral specialists have documented communication patterns between them that exceed anything in our previous operational records. It's as though they've developed private language beyond conventional handling techniques." Ditto. The observation aligned with Layla's own assessment. Sophie and Shadow had indeed established connection that transcended typical human-animal interaction. What had begun as compassionate care for injured creature had evolved into partnership, based on mutual trust and respect that continued to deepen through their shared experiences. "Mark would be so proud of her," Layla said softly. Memories of her late husband bittersweet, yet increasingly peaceful, as healing gradually transformed grief into cherished remembrance. He always believed animals understood far more than most. People recognized. He said we just needed to learn their language instead of expecting them to learn ours. Agent Reeves smiled, the professional expression containing genuine warmth that had developed through their shared journey. "Your husband's philosophy aligns remarkably well with emerging research in our specialized programs. The most successful animal operatives demonstrate partnership rather than simple handling relationship, mutual communication rather than unidirectional control." The validation of Mark's intuitive understanding provided unexpected connection across years of separation, his values and insights living on through Sophie's natural application of principles he had embodied in his approach to animals throughout his life. Though he couldn't witness their extraordinary circumstances, his influence remained visible in every interaction between his daughter and the remarkable stallion who had transformed their lives. As afternoon sun cast long shadows across Willow Creek Ranch, Layla found herself contemplating the extraordinary journey from desperate struggle against mounting debt to newfound purpose as specialized rehabilitation facility. The transformation had begun with single compassionate choice, taking in one injured horse despite practical considerations that argued against it, decision that reflected values they had maintained even when financial pressures made such principles seem like unaffordable luxury. The federal vehicles still stationed discreetly around their property represented protection rather than intrusion. Their presence reminder of larger purpose, their small ranch now served in ongoing efforts against criminal enterprises that harmed communities throughout the region. The renovations already underway in the second barn, specialized rehabilitation equipment being installed by contractors with security clearances, created visible evidence of their transformation from struggling operation to essential component in sophisticated initiative. Shadow's powerful presence in their pasture symbolized everything that had changed through single act of compassion. The stallion who had arrived barely alive, his magnificent body broken and bleeding, now moved with increasing strength and purpose, living, embodiment of resilience and recovery that would soon guide other animals through similar journeys from trauma to renewed purpose. "Mom?" Sophie called from the training area, excitement evident in her voice. "Shadow just completed the entire advanced pattern perfectly. Dr. Harrison says that's 2 weeks ahead of rehabilitation schedule." Layla joined them to witness Shadow's progress, the stallion's intelligent eyes seeking her approval alongside Sophie's enthusiastic praise. His remarkable recovery had indeed exceeded all medical expectations, testament to both specialized treatment protocols and the extraordinary bond with Sophie that had provided emotional foundation for physical healing. Exceptional performance, Dr. Harrison confirmed, professional assessment not quite masking genuine amazement at Shadow's capabilities. His physical rehabilitation has progressed faster than any case in our operational records. The combination of specialized medical intervention and Sophie's intuitive approach to his emotional recovery has created unprecedented results. As they discussed next steps in Shadow's rehabilitation program, Sheriff Martinez returned from consultation with security team at property perimeter. His expression suggested new developments beyond routine coordination. "Just received confirmation that the federal prosecutor has approved immunity agreement for one of Chambers' associates in exchange for comprehensive testimony," he reported. This witness apparently managed documentation for all transportation, operations over the past 3 years, complete network identification, including financial channels and distribution connections. Agent Reeves processed this information with evident satisfaction at investigative progress. That testimony, combined with Shadow's tracking data, creates airtight case beyond what we initially anticipated. The director's decision to authorize comprehensive resources for this investigation has been fully validated by these results. The operational update reinforced extraordinary impact of their simple, compassionate act. Taking in one injured horse had triggered cascade of developments, now culminating in potential dismantling of entire criminal enterprise. Lives would be saved, communities protected, and justice served because they hadn't turned away from animal in desperate need despite their own precarious circumstances. As evening approached, transforming Willow Creek Ranch with golden light that softened weathered buildings and highlighted new construction, Layla found moment of profound peace amid ongoing activity around their property. Federal agents maintained security protocols. Renovation contractors completed daily work on rehabilitation facilities, and Dr. Harrison conducted final evening assessment of Shadow's progress. all elements of their new reality that had seemed unimaginable just weeks earlier. Sophie joined her on porch steps, tired satisfaction evident in her young face after a day dedicated to Shadow's rehabilitation exercises. "Dr. Harrison says the first new horses might arrive next month once the facilities are ready," she reported, with characteristic focus on practical implementation rather than emotional celebration. "He thinks Shadow will be ready to help with their training by then." Layla put her arm around her daughter's shoulders, profound gratitude for her resilience, mingling with maternal pride in her extraordinary capabilities. "You've been amazing through all of this. Dad would be so proud of everything you've done for Shadow." Sophie leaned against her mother with rare moment of vulnerability beneath her remarkable composure throughout their challenges. "I still miss him," she acknowledged softly. "But sometimes when I'm working with Shadow, it feels like Dad's watching somehow. Like he'd understand exactly what we're doing, even when other people think it's strange." The simple observation contained profound truth about legacy that transcended physical presence, Mark's values and insights continuing through his daughters, intuitive application of principles he had embodied throughout his life. Though he couldn't witness their extraordinary transformation, his influence remained evident in every compassionate choice that had guided their journey. Shadows nickering from nearby paddock drew their attention, the stallion's powerful silhouette, backlit by setting sun, creating iconic image of strength reclaimed from desperate circumstances. His intelligent eyes focused on them with unmistakable recognition, ears pricked forward in communication that transcended conventional understanding of animal awareness. "He knows we're talking about him," Sophie said with absolute certainty. That might have seemed childish imagination in any other context. Yet their experiences with Shadow had repeatedly demonstrated awareness beyond typical animal limitations, intelligence and perception that defied conventional classification. As darkness settled over Willow Creek Ranch, lights illuminated renovation, areas where contractors completed daily work on specialized rehabilitation facilities. Security teams maintained discreet presence around property perimeter, their protection no longer intrusive disruption, but welcomed assurance of safety for both family and animals in their care. The transformation from struggling operation facing imminent foreclosure to essential component in sophisticated federal initiative continued with purposeful efficiency that reflected their newfound stability. What remained unchanged amid these extraordinary developments was the fundamental compassion that had guided their initial decision, taking in one injured horse despite practical considerations that argued against it. That single choice made, when every financial calculation suggested additional burden would accelerate their collapse, had instead triggered cascade of transformations beyond anything they could have imagined. Shadow's powerful presence in their lives had indeed brought federal investigators, as the title of their story suggested, but those investigators had become allies rather than complications, partners in journey toward justice that transcended individual circumstances to impact communities throughout the region. The tracking device discovered by their veterinarian friend had not merely identified Shadow's origins, but provided crucial evidence against criminal enterprises that had operated beyond law's reach for years. As Layla tucked Sophie into bed, that night, her daughter's final words before sleep captured essential truth of their extraordinary journey. "Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest choices, right, Mum? Just deciding to help one horse, even when it seems impossible." The simple observation contained wisdom beyond her years, recognition that compassion demonstrated during most challenging circumstances often creates ripples of transformation far beyond immediate action. Their decision to rescue Shadow, despite overwhelming practical considerations, had not merely saved one animal's life, but potentially countless human lives affected by criminal operations his evidence would help dismantle. Layla's final check, before her own rest, took her to Shadow's stall, where the magnificent stallion stood peaceful but alert, his intelligent eyes meeting hers with awareness that continued to transcend conventional understanding of animal consciousness. Their connection had evolved from desperate emergency intervention to mutual respect and trust that represented everything they had experienced together. "Thank you," she said softly, the simple words encompassing gratitude far beyond his remarkable recovery. Shadow's ears pricked forward at her voice, his gentle, nickering response seeming to acknowledge understanding beyond the words themselves. The extraordinary stallion who had arrived at Willow Creek Ranch barely alive, his powerful body broken and bleeding, had not only recovered but transformed their lives in ways that defied imagination. From financial desperation, facing imminent loss of everything they valued, they had found renewed purpose through compassionate choice that aligned with their deepest values despite practical considerations that argued against it. As moonlight filtered through barn windows, illuminating Shadow's powerful silhouette with silver highlights against darkness, Layla recognized that their story had come full circle. The single mother who had rescued injured horse had indeed brought federal investigators to their struggling ranch. But those investigators had become instrumental in saving not just Shadow's life, but the future Layla had feared lost forever. Sometimes the greatest transformations begin with smallest acts of compassion, choosing kindness when practicality suggests otherwise, offering help when personal resources seem insufficient, believing in possibility of healing when evidence suggests otherwise. Shadow's remarkable journey from broken victim to powerful healing partner symbolized resilience that transcended individual circumstances to create ripples of transformation touching countless lives beyond their small ranch. What federal investigators had discovered through Shadow's tracking device would bring justice to criminal operations that had seemed beyond accountability. What Sophie had discovered through connection with Extraordinary Stallion would guide her development with values that would shape her future. What Layla had discovered through their remarkable journey would sustain her through whatever challenges tomorrow might bring. Certainty that compassion demonstrated during darkest moments creates possibility for transformation beyond anything we can imagine when making that crucial choice to help, despite every practical reason not to. Shadow's powerful presence at Willow Creek Ranch represented living testament to this fundamental truth. Reminder that single compassionate choice can indeed change everything, not just for those directly involved, but for wider world touched by ripples of transformation that continue expanding long after initial action that set them in motion. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.